Hello and welcome to episode 41 of Pixel Sift. Each week we dig into the world of games and collect rupees and hearts galore. Each week my co-hosts Scott and Mitch join me on this quest.
Hey.
And our wonderful video producers James and Vaughn produce the video you might be watching right now.
Hey, Ned Flanders.
For everyone on the podcast, I have a moustache this week. So, first up today, though, we're joined by Jane Cox. She's from the brand new organisation Checkpoint.
Checkpoint is an organisation, we're a non-profit organisation, and what we do is we provide consultancy, advocacy and resources to join up the fields of mental health and video games.
That interview coming up later in the show.
Yeah, we're also talking games and politics. It seems that politics is everywhere at the moment, and we'll be talking about how games explore that.
And finally, we're looking at some of the raw numbers from the world of eSports with another prize pool breaking the records.
Let's jump into it.
Pixel Sieve!
It's not Pixel Sieve, it's Pixel Sift.
Pixel Sieve!
All right, so a quick look at r/Australia or any other media outlet, and it becomes very clear that politics is just dominating the airwaves right now. And along with high-profile campaigns running in the US, we've got to be thinking, how is this affecting the games we play?
Very good question, Mitch.
It is a very good question.
Politics is obviously something that's we were talking about history in a couple of previous episodes.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that is very human. It's something that is very applicable to lots of different people from all over the world. And it's something that we can all pretty much relate to. A lot of us would probably go out there and say, look, we hate all the politics of everything, but it is something that we do talk about constantly. Yeah. So, we kind of want to look at this and see how games are actually sort of exploring the world of politics and sort of the relationships that people have with each other through the political spectrum.
Yeah, so the thing that brought this up was that Andy Chalk just wrote down a quick article on PC Gamer and about the new expansion or update to Supreme Ruler, and it's called, so it's a modified version of the American AI that is based on Donald Trump. If he takes power.
Supreme Ruler, Trump Rising.
Yeah, Trump Rising. It says that. And it says, it quotes, "To China and Russia, the new US president seems to be unpredictable and reckless."
This is something that obviously people are very into at the moment. Parity is a big thing when people are kind of disagreeing with some of the politics that you see in the world, and they're going to see more and more Trump-related games and expansions, I'm sure.
And there are quite a few out there.
You found a list, have you?
Oh, I haven't got a list, but I just picked like my favorite, I guess.
Yep.
There's a few Trump-related ones, but the one that I really liked the most was called Trump Toss. And it's basically a wall,
Yep.
and you've got some American citizens on one side, and
Yep.
Mexico's on the other.
Yep.
And there's a bunch of Mexicans mixed up in your American kind of citizenships, and you've got to throw them over the wall.
Oh, wow. Nice.
It's pretty rough.
Yeah. I mean, one of the best things about games is that it does have the opportunity to kind of explore the way that politics kind of happens in the real world through that sort of level of abstraction.
It does seem that it's heavily centered around satire, though. Like, I mean, the games that seem to be popping up in mainstream media are, like, for example, Bronwyn Copter. Do you remember that? When
Bronwyn Copter.
Bronwyn Bishop chartered that helicopter for I think a very short trip, and it's just.
I would think it was for like a voluntary or charity speech or something. Really.
Yeah. And then,
it was like a 30-minute drive, but it was it's only 5 minutes by chopper, though.
Take the chopper.
Yeah. Get to the chopper. There is a lot of that where it is the sort of parody, but there are other examples. For example, games like Civilization, where you have to deal with a world, democratic and diplomatic situation where you have to sort of work out between different cultures and nations how you can fit in the world. I've had situations where I played, many hours of this game where, there's someone who's a nearby border or maybe not that nearby, and they've got a resource that you need. And, you try the first things because obviously you try to trade with them, but then it becomes very tempting to just go and roll some troops across the border.
We could diplomatically sort this out, but, kind of not giving me the deal I want, and I could probably just walk over there and take it.
Once I just get in there,
I'm not going to do much
I could just take it. I've got a much better army than you, and I need jets. Okay,
so essentially...
Okay, USA.
Civilization turned you into the Blitzkrieg, pretty much. Is that what happened?
Well, it's very, in a miniature, that's kind of you start to understand the motivations why sort of nation states sort of do behave in this particular way, because it is a simplified version. You need a resource. Someone else has got this resource. You can try deal with them in a diplomatic way. It might cost you a lot of money, or there's other ways to deal with it. And some of those ways do have consequences. Like usually when you go and invade someone, everyone around you declares war on you because you're not a good global citizen. Yeah. But that sort of thing has happened in history, and it really makes a lot of sense. I mean, there's other ones as well. One of the games that really resonated with me is a game called Papers, Please, which is set in sort of an oppressive government, and you're a border guard basically, determining whether people can get through the checkpoint basically, and people present to you with all of the documents that they have. Some people are okay, they've got all the documents. Some people don't have the documents, but they've got legitimate reasons for trying to get past.
So they say,
and you've got to try and make that decision whether you think this person can come through or not, and it has impacts on your own personal life in the game as well, paying your rent and all of these things. And that sort of is a very good example of how someone can be kind of caught up in this system that they themselves may not want to be doing bad things personally.
Really interesting game, that one. Should definitely check it out.
Yeah, and how they can actually be caught up in a system that, gets carried away.
Yeah, you can't kind of win.
Another example of games and politics mixing is some organizations will use games to, I guess, put forward their political motivation. For example, that PETA game. It's like that Pokemon ripoff that they made in 2013.
PETA.
Yeah. People for the treatment of animals. Yeah.
Yeah, and so they've
actually made quite a few games.
And I was giving it a go just then, and I mean, to their, I don't want to credit them, but it's actually it's a fairly competent ripoff of Pokemon. The only thing I'd ever compare it to is probably the Rick and Morty game, the Pocket Mortys. I mean, for a Pokemon ripoff, it's actually a pretty good Pokemon ripoff.
And when you think about it, when you think about it, that's how you do actually have good analysis of these things, is that you actually take something that people understand and then change the context slightly. Yeah. And then you can go, well, actually, when you think about if you think about it, Pokemon is like, you're getting a bunch of animals to beat each other up constantly.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's not a great existence for them.
What's funny about it is they reference things in Pokemon. So the person that made it has obviously played Pokemon and done their research. I mean, so I guess they're bending it and warping it and to their own weird agenda. But still, I mean, it's an example.
There is a Australian-based political game, I guess. It's an app, and it's supposed to be a game, but it's very basic. It's called Malcolm versus Bill. Liberal versus Labor, the Australian political showdown, or the Australian politics showdown. That's made by mostly good apps.
Yep.
Very basic. You choose either Labor or Liberal, and you're not supposed to let the other side get through Parliament, I guess.
Pretty accurate depiction, though, I guess.
The little ballot box that you got to kind of like flip. But yeah, it's more of a laugh kind of. It doesn't like the Trump toss, which is on GOP arcade. If anyone's interested, all of those games. So I'll just say all of those games are really kind of satirical and are saying something. Like Trump toss, there's Thoughts and Prayers. And
Thoughts and Prayers is one I want to talk about. It's one of the most interesting ones on that site. Basically, it's sort of a criticism of the way that the US gun debate goes in America, that quite often politicians will just say, we give
our prayers are with
our thoughts and prayers are with X, with the victims of X, and this always happens when there's a big crisis or some catastrophe basically, and there isn't a way for you to actually do anything in the game to solve the problem.
No.
You just kind of have to put out the platitudes. So
one of the other ones I really liked was Good Guy with a Gun.
Yeah.
And basically you're a gun shop owner, and you've got 3 tiers worth of people that come up to you. So there's like this guy that looks kind of crazy, there's this old lady, and there's a kid, and you give them their guns, and all of a sudden someone backfires and shoots you. The point is you obviously don't know who's going to be a good guy. And all of the games are basically like that, really kind of strong, satirical, funny, but not a lot of depth.
And I think that's a good way for people to kind of understand these topics as well, because it can be quite tiring to see these debates go back and forth, and there's a lot of slogans get thrown around, and kind of breaking it down to this really simple level where you can kind of just see that this is a ridiculous thing.
You need to make it. You need to make that. You need to show the ridiculous side of it, because stats and logic obviously don't work in this kind of battle because there's too much, personal whatever.
Yeah.
But games like this really kind of breach that topic and that ideal very well.
Yeah. perfect thing for comedy and perfect thing for games to kind of explore.
Yeah,
So-
awesome. I hope there's a bit of more of a future in that, especially for Australian politics, because that is the Australian app, as funny as it is, and it's kind of a little bit satirical, but it doesn't really say much, not like the GOP arcade ones.
Yeah.
We did mention a lot of American examples, but like if you
Yeah,
have any
this
Australian
was-
examples, let us know.
I tried to. Like I said, that was the
Yeah.
only app I found.
Yeah.
Let's jump into our next topic.
Pixel Sift. Pixel Sift. No, seriously, Pixel Sift. No, seriously.
Pixel Sift.
Earlier today, Mitch and I spoke to Jane Cox. She's one of the founders and the director of the new non-profit organisation Checkpoint. We talked about the representation of mental health in games, what games can do to help with positive mental health and addiction.
I'm Jane Cox, and I'm a PhD candidate and a researcher of psychology and games. Checkpoint is an organisation, we're a non-profit organisation, so we're basically bringing health to games and games to health, and we'd really like to advocate for the positive use of video games in health settings and also talk about mental health and get a greater awareness of the issues around mental health and representation in video games as well. So ultimately what we're aiming to do is I guess, be the bridge between those two fields.
Now, games are starting to be used a bit more for health, and not only mental health, but also physical health conditions as well. Where are some of the things that people need to work on, or where are some of the gaps that you're trying to bridge?
Yeah, okay. So I guess what we'd like to do is increase the knowledge of health professionals and people in medical and psychological fields about video games, and just provide education about the different games that are out there and the different kinds of technology that can be used in healthcare settings. Like there's a great wealth of games that are being made now. You might have heard the term like serious games, games that are actually designed not purely for entertainment, like they're designed with other factors in mind, whether that be increases in well-being and quality of life and mental health, or whether it's education or training and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of games out there that are not just for entertainment now. I guess we'd also like to improve the representation of mental health issues within games, and then just strengthen the evidence for video game technology in healthcare.
What do you think of the representation of mental health in games as it kind of exists at the moment?
Yeah, look, it's getting better than it has been previously. So we're seeing initiatives like the Asylum Jam, for example, which is run in New Zealand, and what that aims to do is, particularly with the horror genre, there is generally this misrepresentation a lot of the time in the horror genre of asylums and mental health as something that's scary and something that is just frequently used and overused, in fact, in video games to elicit those fear responses in people. So it's about breaking that stereotype down and that representation of negativity when we're talking about mental health issues, that it is something that is common and it is something that's okay, and we don't need to use it to elicit fear in our games. And so that Asylum Jam, for example, is to create games in that horror genre without resorting to those typical, stereotypical, asylum themes and mental illness themes. So it is getting better. There's still work to do.
Does the media that people kind of consume impact their likeliness to go and seek help if they need help?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's probably a really good study to do, to be honest. I think it does, anecdotally, I think we're more likely to relate to to characters and to media that is sensitive towards conditions that we identify with. And I think it would have an impact. But again, this is something which really needs to be studied.
Now, mental health issues are the number one health issues that affect young people. Do you think the media that's sort of tailored towards young people needs to do a better job at describing and sharing that experience for others so that we can kind of understand it better?
Yeah, look, absolutely. And, it can be done in a number of ways. It can be done really abstractly by presenting games and interactive experiences that just display that these mental health issues exist, but they're not really the primary feature of the game. And in that way, communicate and I guess normalise that, this is something that happens in society and this is how that character deals with it. And then you can have other games and other interactive media that tackles it quite directly. And so we have games such as, Reach Out's Orb, which is based on young people and mental health issues, and it's specifically designed to build skills in relation to increasing your socialisation and actually develop skills to help you with your mental health issues. So there's kind of two really good approaches with tackling those mental health issues among young people, and there's a lot of evidence to suggest that those are both successful with illuminating mental health issues with young people and also assisting them.
What are some of the really good examples you think of games that have kind of done it really well? Have you mentioned Orb just there, but some maybe titles that people might know of where they've looked at mental health issues and they've kind of treated them in a fair and reasonable way? Immediately
what comes to mind is games where I guess diversity and personality and health issues and all of these things are kind of tackled together, is games like Life is Strange, games like Gone Home, they're not, this is what I was talking about before with the first kind of game where these issues aren't tackled specifically, they're just kind of part of the story, part of the game experience. Whereas, Orb, for example, is designed specifically for that purpose. But I think both of those games that I've mentioned really tackle sensitively some mental health issues and, issues of coming of age and growing up and dealing with different circumstances that might be stressful.
I was going to ask, what are your thoughts on game addiction, and what is your opinion on games that are designed to be as addictive as possible, and how does that relate to mental health?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So, I guess I have to say that game addiction definitely has been focused on as an area of research very much so in the past, and the negative impacts of gaming, and people are addicted to video games, and so there's a lot of research about that, about games that are addictive and all games are negative and this kind of thing. A lot of the research now is moving in the direction of video games, and playtime, such as moderate playtime, is actually very beneficial for you. In fact, there's been just recent studies that have been done that have shown that moderate amounts of video game play are actually more beneficial in terms of mood and mental health than groups which do not play video games at all and groups which play excessively. So I guess the excessive video game players, it's not necessarily specific games, but it's more about the fact that those people in that group might be getting a lot of their needs, psychological needs satisfaction from playing particular games.
You mentioned earlier that we need to change the way we think about mental health issues. How could we use video games to help with that process? And how can the characters we encounter join us on that journey?
Yeah, look, absolutely. So this is a great example of just autonomy and character agency, is that, these struggles can be very real and very identifiable for players, and they'll almost, insert themselves into the character and experience those things, and then that can actually be part of game experiences in overcoming those difficulties.
Jane Cox from Checkpoint there. You can visit checkpoint.org.au for more information. But if you need to chat to someone now about how you're feeling, or if you need some help and you're in Australia, you can call Lifeline on 131114 24 hours a day.
Visit us on pixelsift.com.au.
So it's been a while since we've touched on the topic of eSports, and this time, unsurprisingly, it has only grown bigger. Today's final topic, we'll be looking at the money involved and surrounding these eSports leagues in what is quickly becoming a competitive set of tournaments to rival the world's biggest, monetarily speaking, of course.
And the world's biggest, monetarily speaking, is... Puts him on the spot.
Yeah, sorry. I've got my stats there. Okay, so this is overall prize pool-wise.
Yep.
The international, which is last year's international, 18.4 million. I'm not going to go into the rest of the digits. Not important. And that was for a DOTA 2 tournament that had about 16 players, about 80 competitors in that all up. As far as individuals, though, the highest one is about $510,000, and that goes back to 2005 for the CPL World Tour Finals. They were playing Painkiller. It was about 32 players.
Yep.
As far as individual, it drops down. It's quite weird. It's all the first two are all about 500,000, but it's the games that really get me. Actually, no. So let's switch to the overall prize pools. As far as the games, the top 7 are all Dota 2. The top 2 prize pools ever are all Dota 2. And then it goes to Smite. And the first known kind of commercial game that known to non-gamers and
a game
gamers
that you can pick up in a shop.
Exactly. I was about to say known to gamers and non-gamers alike. So they're just a part of, I guess, our pop culture. Halo 5, that's in at number 9. The next one that comes in that is Call of Duty at number 16. I think
all the way down there, Call of Duty.
Yeah, right.
Huh. Right.
And then it's Call of Duty for 3 or 4 in a row, and then Counter-Strike, etc., etc. But the thing I find the most amazing about this, and it's why I'm kind of so fascinated about esports, is it's kind of existing completely separate to the commercial kind of pop culture ideals. So that unless you're in gaming, you don't know you won't know what Dota 2 is. It's not a household kind of name, not in Australia anyway. I don't know what it's like in the rest of the world. And League of Legends is in there as well, and you could say the same about that. Even though there are such massive games in the gaming world, outside of the gaming world, they're not really known of.
Like Smite? I know people that play games that don't know what Smite is.
Smite's number 8.
Yeah. And I love Smite. Smite's awesome. But I know people that play games and love games, and they're like me, and they don't know what Smite is.
Well, obviously they've got a very, very strong niche, and these niche are very happy to shell out the cash. In the case of Dota 2, so for this year's tournament, last year was 18.4. That's correct.
Want me to go down the rundown?
Yeah.
I'll go back.
This year's tournament is now currently sitting at more than 18.6 million.
Whoa.
So,
and that is and who can win that? Who wins that prize?
The best people in the world, basically. So they have a bunch of the international is the big one. They have a bunch of majors where they have sort of the preliminary events, and then they bring them along to this big thing in Seattle's.
16 teams was last year. I don't know how many teams are going to have this year. 16 teams of 5.
Yep. And the fascinating thing about this, and we've talked about this I think in about our second or third episode, was that they fund this through an in-game item that they sell to players of the game, something called a battle pass. And that gives you access to items and promotional stuff, but it also gives you access to watching the tournament as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that is all money that's been generated from this pass. And, that $18 million we're talking about there, that's prize money, right?
Yep.
Yep.
So that's attracting people who are going to be, divvying up for that particular thing. But there is probably countless countless millions of dollars sitting in the background for all of the promotional, the infrastructure, all the spending of that, the travel costs. That $18 million is what we see as customers, basically.
It is one of the only things like this where other sporting events, they are sponsored by a company or like the organization fronts up the money for it and things like that. But this is
Could you imagine if the
funded by
AFL?
people.
You imagine if the AFL would make a prize pool of money based on the tickets?
They would not get 18 million, that's for sure. Yeah.
No, but also you couldn't fit huge amounts of people in one stadium.
True.
There's actually physical finite space in these spots. So, there's an inherent advantage of being an online digital media in that you can have 100,000 people watching without having to rent out a 100,000 person stadium.
The thing that I really, again, find fascinating about this is the growth of it. The same esport tournament, the international, if you go back to 2011 or 2012, it was like a $1.6 million prize pool. So from 11 to 12, they jumped up 13. It was 2.8. In 2014, it was 10 million. In 2015, it was 18.4. And like you said, it's
16. It's 18.6.
Gone over that.
Yeah.
In 2015, there were 112 major esports events that generated an estimated $20.6 million in ticket revenues. So the total prize money for all the esports held in 2015 in general was $61 million. That's a 70% year-on-year increase. It's an exponential growth. It's incredible.
I wonder though, will all of these tournaments be able to exist into the future? One of the things about sport is that you often have codes that are going to be regionally restricted. AFL, for example.
Okay.
Cricket's only kind of played in the Commonwealth and a few other places. But, American football, which is a huge sport, but very limited appeal outside of the United States.
What we were talking about last week a little bit with gaming culture.
Yep.
Gaming doesn't kind of have a set kind of, home, I guess, internationally or whatever. Whereas the games you're speaking to, the traditional versus games, I guess we'll call them, they're culturally significant. NFL, AFL, whatever, cricket, like you said, Commonwealth, they draw back to a kind of historical point and whatever.
So this is why I wonder though, because if you've got all these places around the world that all enjoy this one experience, you're only going to have limited amount of time to watch any of these codes. And you're never going to be, if you're a true fan, you're probably not going to be across every single thing. Well, so how are they all going to be able to survive once this gets to... is there going to be a peak?
The global esports audience, again, I've only got figures from last year, because obviously we haven't finished this one yet.
Yep.
But 226 million gamers, that was the esports audience for last year. The number of esports enthusiasts reached $115 million. Again, the growth for that the year was 27%.
I would just like to point out that the the battle passes, for example, the most expensive one is $26.99 USD. Now, it's important to note
for a free game.
But it's every year, though.
Yeah, but if you look at it, 25% of all Battle Pass sales go directly to the 2016 International Prize Pool.
So a quarter of every dollar cent basically spent goes to the prize pool.
So take $18.6 million and times it by 4.
Yeah.
And you can work out the number
So the amount
times it by 3, and that's what they're actually, earning.
Taking home, yeah.
I'm not criticizing or anything, but that's just the volume of money moving through video games in 2016.
In esports, yeah, especially in DOTA and this is phenomenal money.
It's unbelievable money.
Well, do you want to hear the global revenue reached for 2015?
Lay it on us.
This is numbers heavy.
You know how much I love my numbers.
Yeah.
$325 million. That was the global revenue for last year, which is, I think, a growth rate of 67%. I think in North America accounted for $121 million of that 325. So quite a significant.
Games are already
China
bigger
and Korea are the other one.
Games are already bigger than movies. The games industry, and that's
bigger than Jesus.
And now with esports on top of that, it's almost its own category. Then this is definitely something very, very big. So I'm sure that's not news to you.
Wow.
But what might be news to you is that this is the end of the episode. So we've reached the end of episode 41. Thank you.
Did that segue come with that mustache?
And what a mustache. If you're not viewing this on Twitch or whatever, please go and have a look.
I'm going to post a screenshot on my Twitter.
Curled up on Gianni's lip and died.
Golden Glade.
Small animal.
Golden Glade says go sports.
Small animal, massive animal.
Thank you for that, Golden Glade.
Go local sports team.
Look, let's not talk about my moustache anymore. Okay. Thanks for joining us today on episode 41 of Pixel Sift. We'll be sticking up links in the show notes for this episode on our website, which is www.pixelsift.com. If you've been enjoying the show, we'd love to hear from you. You can jump on social media. You can send us an email to hello@pixelsift.com.au. Scott, if people want to jump on social media, where are we?
People jump on social media and you can find us at facebook.com/pixelsift, twitter.com/pixelsift, twitch.tv/pixelsift, and youtube.com/pixelsiftau.
And Mitch, our other episodes.
Yeah, other episodes 40 episodes just like this one can be viewed on our website and on YouTube. And you can also get them on iTunes, Pocket Casts, and the links on our page.
You can subscribe as well, so feel free to do that. Leave us
Yep.
a rating and a review. We'd really appreciate it. So thank you very much for joining us.
Peace out.
How about that Vaughn guy?
How about some more of that?
Yeah.
More of that. See ya.
See ya.